Good morning. My name is Brett, and I want to tell you why I'm a Christian. Please excuse this video. It's not planned. It's not scripted. I want to talk to you straight from the heart. I will go back and do some edits so that I can provide proof to where I come from and why I am at the place where I'm at right now. This video is not necessarily for believers. This is for people that are lost as I was, which unfortunately is a large percentage of the population today. So a brief background about myself. I'm from Ohio. I've lived in Ohio my whole life. I am 39 years old. I am a father of a beautiful 18-year-old girl, Haley, and I am married. We're moving on 2 years to my wife, Kimberly, and we've been together for 7 years. I never thought that I would be making a video to profess my Christianity or try to help others see things the way that I have seen them. I live just fine in a secular world. I thought that I had no need for religion. I thought that the Bible was wrong. I thought that Jesus did not even exist. I was very, very wrong. I was wrong. My path to Christianity wasn't one that is conventional. I did not have any Jehovah's Witnesses come knocking at my door. I wasn't brainwashed by a cult. Not that these are conventional methods, but these are the concepts that I always considered that might lead someone to believe in Christ as very real and sent directly from God, as His only begotten Son, to give the ultimate sacrifice for our sins. But I came to Christ when I was 39 years old, very recently actually. The realization of the validity of Christianity and the truth of Jesus as a Savior is what is compelling me to make this video right now. I've been putting this off for some time. I wanted to have a nicer suit. I wanted to comb my hair, but this is a message that I have to get out today. Your time here is limited. And if you live it the wrong way, you will have squandered the opportunities that have been presented before you. But I came to Christ when I was 39 years old. It was not a thing of willingness. It was not a thing that I got into a new group of friends that I thought, well, this is making them happy. I want to be happy. This isn't something that is heavily promoted in my circles. I am a tattoo artist. And in our circles, secularism and scientism reign supreme over religion. If religion is a thing, it's usually an esoteric, new age, sometimes even satanic thing. You can see this is the sigil of Lucifer. I have a Baphomet on my throat. I have Aleister Crowley quote across my collarbones. This is the place that I came from. I'm not proud of these things anymore, but these are going to be my tools so that I can reach others that are in the place where I was. I feel compelled to share what I found with you. When I was a kid, my mom raised us somewhat within the Christian church. I did do Sunday school when I was a young child. I went to church until we were probably 10 or 11. I wouldn't say every weekend. And then at 12, I made the decision to get baptized on my own. It wasn't an honest acceptance of Christ. It was more of a plea bargain, a bartering deal. I was very sick one night. I was familiar with salvation. Didn't comprehend what it truly meant. I was only 12 years old. I only had such a worldview at this time. But I gave my life to Christ in order to feel better. I wouldn't say it was the most honorable thing. After that, I wrote a contract, physically down on paper, to Christ and God, saying, I will give my life to you. I shared it with my mom the next day. She was ecstatic, and she had the pastor come out, First Baptist Church of Pickerington, Chris Reber, came out and spoke to me, asked me the questions that he needed to ask, and I answered in the right way, and was baptized. I did not live a Christian life from that moment since. I understand that the devil does come calling, and he comes calling hard if he thinks that you might be an asset to Christianity or anything like that. He doesn't like happiness. And oh yes, the devil is real. So at around 13, I started getting into nasty stuff. I smoked weed for the first time at 13. I had sex for the first time at 13. I dropped acid for the first time at 13. I became a huge fan. I had already been a fan, but I became really enthralled with heavy metal, horror movies. Anything that was dark kind of drew me right towards it. Looking back with hindsight, 2020 vision, all these pieces come together, and they tell quite a story. And it's not really a story about me. This is a third-party story told from a first-person perspective, if that makes sense. This is my life, but it's a story about Jesus. I know how this comes across. Anytime that anyone that was in my world, in my circle of what is essentially sin, if you look at the activities that I was engaged in, and that many people out there watching right now are engaged in, it's listed. It's listed in the most tested and reproduced book of all time. It's the Bible. 1,400 years in the making, 40 authors. It's not to be discredited, although that's what we do. But anyways, I know how a testimony sounds to a non-believer, but I implore you, please, just hear me out. So when I was 13, I fell deep into sin. I started wearing metal shirts, being an outcast from society. Heavy metal was not popular at all. It was a skater. Skateboarding was not popular at all. I was kind of an outcast, and I very much enjoyed it. I'm not quite certain why. But that was the path that I chose. I fell in with a young man that came from a troubled home, and he introduced me to the weed, the alcohol, hooked me up with his best friend, a young lady that we had sex at just way before age. I barely knew her. And that was the way of my life for 27 years. I was always very good scholastically, academically, whatever the word is. I'm no genius, and I'm not perfect, so please don't expect either from this. This is from my heart. This is a person to a person. And I say it on a lot, but I always did very well in school, no matter how many drugs I was on, no matter how distracted I was. I was essentially a straight A student. When I graduated high school, I was offered 3 different scholarships, and I took them and pursued biological sciences because I was fascinated with the theory of evolution. I did very well in school. I went to OU Lancaster. I was on the dean's list consistently. I continued to win awards. I was inducted into a National Honor Society, Phi Theta Kappa Beta Beta Theta chapter. My accomplishments academically kind of spoke for my understanding of what was given to me. I could take that information in and give it back as it was taught, and scored good grades. The one thing that I saw during the courses in biological sciences, I saw questions that weren't very comfortable to me with my desire to make scientism a infallible source of truth. We covered certain aspects, evolution, microevolution, some things just didn't make sense. Eventually, I lost my interest in school. I dropped out for a small period. At that point, I met my first wife, and before we were married, before we dated, we were having sex. And it was a bad activity, but it brought the biggest blessing of my life at this point. My daughter was gifted to me. She is probably the one saving grace that kept me from going completely off the deep end. I always had to, I didn't have to, I wanted to be there for her in a capacity. I thought that I was a good father. I thought that I was involved, but looking back, I know that I've had shortcomings. I'm sure every father feels the same way, but I feel pretty guilty about these things, and I'll elaborate. So, we had Haley. We decided to get married. We didn't really know each other at that point. We knew that we wanted to provide a home for our child. So we got married shortly before Haley was born. And thankfully, I got to experience the first few years of her life, the walking, the first words, first smiles, all that stuff that really matters. That's what really matters. Unfortunately, because her mother and I didn't see eye to eye, we didn't know what love was at that point. We got divorced. The pain that came subsequently of having my daughter removed from my life and watching another man raise her, watch another man teach her how to ride bikes, watch another man teach her how to drive a car. It's rough. And it's a product of not living within the simple guidelines that are laid out in the Bible. If anything, even if you're a non-believer, understand that this is information and truth that has been tested over centuries. It took 1,400 years to write it. These are philosophical and spiritual truths that apply directly to you, to me, to everyone on this planet. So I had started going to school while I was still married because I really wanted to provide a nice house for my wife and child. I went to school full time and I worked as a server. And, I was caught up in my ego and myself and worldly desires and the satisfactions of the flesh. I was very angry. I was a young man, and I fought with my wife terribly. We ended up getting separated. I was still in school, and shortly after we got separated, and I was still maintaining school, as we were going through the divorce, I thought I didn't really know how the legal system worked. I thought that she might be able to come after my possessions. So I began to sell things in order just to get them away so that she couldn't get to them. And one of those items was a guitar. It was a very nice Les Paul guitar, kind of probably the nicest possession that I had. I took it to Stain Skin in Columbus and I said, hey, is anyone willing to trade this guitar for a half sleeve? I ended up getting this one from a guy named Tom Cinnamond, and while I was sitting there, he was telling me all these artists to look up, and he was a very intelligent man, into a lot of the things I was starting to get an interest in, such as Kabbalism, esoteric studies, transcendental thoughts. Alex Gray art made me question what these symbols meant, what a chakra was, what an energy system was, what a psychic energy, spiritual energy system was. And so I started to move slowly into this. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but it was a theosophical school of thought, and it was based in esotericism. Today it would be known as New Age to a lot of people. Reiki practitioners and all that, it all falls within this category. It goes back to Gnosticism and eventually to Babylonian mystery religion. This was a safe doorway for me to start getting really lost at this point. Before that, I was a kid making ignorant mistakes. You know, it's easy to do in today's society. Our media, our entertainment, even the government is set up with these school programs and things like sex education and all these ideas of, you know, just be you, do you, you know, be selfish, satisfy your happiness, and you'll make others happy. It's not really, at face value, it doesn't seem evil. It doesn't seem like something that can get a hold of you, but it will. I'll continue. So as I started learning about these esoteric studies with Tom, he was also teaching me about artists that use tattooing in a way that I wasn't familiar with. This was 15 years ago, which would have made around actually about 2001, 2002. So the internet was still kind of new for tattoo artists. There were only so many websites, and those were only done by the top-notch tattoo artists that were very intelligent and able to use that media to their advantage. It's not the world that you see today. It's not the Instagram where everybody has the voice that's like that. You get an app and you have a website. So he was telling me about and the only sources that I had at that time of tattoo art were tattoo magazines and the ideas of what I thought it was, like tribal and you know, not so much. Not that there's anything wrong with tribal, but it doesn't. It's more of a graphic style, and it doesn't appeal to me as I wanted to do illustration, things like that. So I wasn't familiar with the full capacity and abilities of the medium. He told me these artists, you know, the Curran brothers, Grime, all these people that were really taking it to a new level that I thought that I was aware of. There's been great artists in tattooing for a long time. But anyways, so I started to get an interest in maybe pursuing tattooing as a career. I did it the wrong way and got a kit and did it at home for a while, and then saw that I kind of had a little potential. I was always an okay artist, and then I decided, you know what, this is the wrong way, and I knew that I was missing something, so I stepped back from tattooing and went back into school again for the third time, I believe it was. Back into biology, but I also started taking philosophy classes, philosophy of religion, you know, and art classes to back up, to put it all together. These seem like they're going off on a tangent, but this will all come together. So with my interest in tattooing combined with my, you know, philosophy and art things, I saw a vision that I wanted to carry out with my life. And I decided to make a legitimate attempt at a career in tattooing. My first apprenticeship was at a biker shop. I saw a guy that had tattooed me when I was 19, and he caught him in a Kroger parking lot, said, "Hey, are you hiring any front desk things?" He said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want to know how to tattoo." He said, "Bring me your portfolio of fine art and we'll talk." So I brought him a portfolio. The portfolio that I brought him was all devils. It was, you know, because of the heavy metal and the horror movie and imagery, I liked shocking things. I even had an Uncle Sam that was pointing, but he had horns and it says, "Satan wants you," things like that. And oddly enough, serial killers, because I had an interest in that. I think that's a captivating thing for even normal people. It's an interesting psychological outcropping of humanity. But he enjoyed the dark art that I had, and that opened the door for me into tattooing. The apprenticeship there only took me so far technically, and I was getting tattooed at the time by a great artist named Gunnar. And he saw that I had, and underneath this tattoo, these tattoos were two more. I've had them lasered off and disapplied. But underneath this side was a tattoo machine that my first mentor gave me. When Gunnar saw it on my next tattoo session, he said, "What are you doing?" You're supposed to be getting better tattoos, not worse ones, because it wasn't the best quality. And I explained to him that I was trying to get into tattooing. I kind of hid it from him because, I knew that I wasn't in the best spot. I was a little embarrassed of it. And he said, well, I'll teach you how to tattoo. And that's where my career really took off. So the intro into tattooing for me was satanic imagery, esoteric imagery, Kabbalah studies, numerology, Hindu and Vedic based imagery, and so it began. I was an apprentice for about a year, and then I tattooed for about a year. Ended up going back to my original mentor after I left Gunner. My pride and ego pushed me out of my really good spot and back into the original mentor's shop. At this time, it was called Natas, Natas, Satan backwards, to help promote that kind of idea and really push it forward. My art became all satanic. It moved from even the doctrines of, universal truths and love and all these things that are provided with esoteric into a very dark place. I did very well with it. The world definitely paid me well. The devil really liked me on that team. I ended up eventually getting my own shop after that, and I ran it for 2 years before it kind of fell flat. In my rage-filled days, I had quite a temper, and during a health inspection, I actually assaulted the director of the Board of Health, and it caused such a rift in my business and in the vibe down in Lancaster that I left there and came up to High Street Tattoo. When I got to campus, I really was immersed into a very liberal culture, very party-based culture. There, on High Street, I don't even know how many bars there are. It's got to be crazy amounts. And I really got into the life of the party atmosphere. I started drinking heavily. I had never stopped really smoking weed from, I don't even know, when I was 13 on. There were little spells where I stopped, but that was a lifelong thing. I got into the party culture pretty heavily, and because I was a young tattoo artist, I was able to essentially exploit a lot of women. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's part of my history, part of my knowledge, part of my path. All of these things that I'm telling you are not for glorification. I regret them, that I did them. I'm thankful for the knowledge and experience that I got from them, because it led me to where I am today, but it's not something I'm exactly proud of. I'm telling you these things in humility. There's going to be some things that are downright embarrassing as I go. So I lived for the next 11 years going further and further and further into that hole. My weed and acid days, even with acid, I ended up in the ER with a girlfriend that I gave her the acid. She had a bad trip, thought she couldn't breathe, ended up in the ER. Weed, I ended up getting arrested and put on probation to where I could only have driving and child pickup, or work and child privileges for driving. Nothing stopped me. Nothing stopped me. Nothing would ever stop me. I thought, you're young, you're invincible. And again, it's not an excuse, but the world is telling you through music, through culture, through movies, through television shows, through reality TV, that this is the way that you're going to be successful. This is the happiness. You're happy because you're high. You're happy because you're drunk. You're happy because you're going through woman after woman after woman. You're happy because you're living in the total flesh in the world and the now, because there is no after. There is no more than the material that you see. Supernatural is something that's laughed at and scoffed at most of the time. Spiritual it's almost not even a consideration. And the life that I lived was very well rewarded. I ended up ascending from the tattoo shop in Lancaster where I lost it, got into the high street tattoo, built a clientele, built a network of tattoo artists, and started traveling, started doing conventions. I would go and sleep around in these different cities. I would do coke. I would take weed, from miles on end, hour drives with weed that I could have got busted like that. I would go to these conventions. I was nervous when I first got there, so I started slamming alcohol. I remember one of the pieces that I did, that almost won tattoo of the day. I was so drunk that I couldn't stand up. Don't know how that happened, but it's real. The life was well rewarded, though. I really, besides those small little hiccups, which were even before tattooing, the weed and the acid ER visit was before tattooing. So as I got into tattooing, I was rewarded, making really good money, be able to buy all this stuff. It led me to what the convention life, where I actually met my wife. My wife was a nude model at the time, something that she's planning on giving a testimonial about, and she's also come to Christ. We'll get to that. But she had a boyfriend at the time. I had a girlfriend at the time. We were wrong. We flirted with each other. We planted seeds with each other of, oh, hey, hit me up sometime. Oh, yeah, okay. And it wasn't there long after that current girlfriend, we broke up. It always happened. I'd go through relationship after relationship after relationship, if it was even called a relationship. Sometimes they were so brief, it was just physical and gone. She and I ended up getting together 7 years ago. And at the time, she was a nude model and a dancer. And I suspected a little bit more because sometimes she had money that was pretty substantial in a short amount of time. She even said to me at one point through tears, I don't want to have sex for money. And I thought that seems more reactive than proactive. See, I saw a little hurt there, but because I was so selfish and I needed the money that she was getting, I didn't look further. I didn't want to see, and that's a huge part of life, is what you want to see. So we became a pretty solid thing, and I really enjoyed her. She was a smart, beautiful, just intelligent, warm, compassionate, empathetic, loving girl. We ended up making it work for a few months. I introduced her to Haley. She treated my daughter like her own. They bonded in ways that I didn't even bond with my daughter. Unfortunately, because of my divorce, I only saw my daughter on the weekends. Again, I can't tell you the pain that brings. You may be on the cusp of, doing these things. You may not have experienced that. But at 39 years old, thinking that the party life was all and that I was the master of it, that's not so awesome. So we ended up getting together. I started a new shop with 4 of my friends called Sovereign Collective. My inability to get along with people, my temper, my resentment, my high expectations for others caused that partnership to dissolve. I pretty much ran them out in a quick, almost a strong arm maneuver. I told them, if you can't buy everything that I have in here, you can't use my things, which were essential to tattooing, some of the stencil making, some of the furniture. And I said, either you go, or you can't use any of my stuff. I left them with no option. They went and opened their own tattoo shop, Memento, which is highly successful. Good for you guys. And went on about their lives happy without me. I stayed in Short North Tattoo. We changed the name to Short North Tattoo to make it more marketable. I ended up actually moving into Short North Tattoo, literally into the shop, which oddly enough was an Oddfellows Lodge. I left a Freemason temple where I was living, moved to an Oddfellows Lodge, and then began to amass my own business again. All the while, my art, my interests, they're all still in the esoteric and theosophical realms. And then I discovered through conspiracy videos. I like to get online and look through, you know, the 9/11 conspiracies and the Illuminati conspiracies. And I kept seeing these videos that said, oh, Masons, 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 Freemasons, Freemasons. So I started working those symbols into my art, not knowing what I was putting in there, not knowing what I was drawing into my life, not being aware of where I was as far as living in a Mason temple, living in an Oddfellows Lodge, more esoteric stuff. So I started putting those images in there, and when you look back, you see connections in a plan that kind of were above your understanding, and I'm telling you, those also go forward. They're not just in hindsight. You can't see the connection. You can see the connections when you look back, say, maybe I should have been with this person. This person brought me to this. This location brought me to this. This activity brought me to this. That's easy to do once it's been done. The thing is, God has a plan, and He knows it before you, and it exists before you get there, just as you're watching this video right now. This is part of your plan right now. This is part of my plan right now. As it is, there's a personal plan for everyone that all interlocks, yes, all 7.5 million of us. So as I work these Masonic symbols into my work, I was approached by a Freemason, and he said, I think you would make a good Mason. I said, how do I become one? And that's how you become one. And it was shortly after that I was in a lodge walking around. I'm not going to delve too deeply into the rituals because there's quite a once you get into them, you know not to talk about it. But I can talk about having this sigil of Lucifer on my face as I was in view of the older Masons and the authority of Masons, and they were okay with it. I went up a few degrees and then kind of even fell out of that. As much as I had interest and potential in things, I never realized my full potential in anything, as in letting it come to fruition. So that was just another chapter in the life, chapter of, you know, at this point we have drugs, sex, rock and roll, and now we're moving into esoteric and Illuminati existence. If you believe any of the conspiracy theories, if you can look at the streets of Washington, D.C., if you look at your money, you'll know that Freemasons do indeed run the world. So here I am in the midst of all the power, and I start thinking, wow, there's something to this, there's something to this. And I go from an atheist scientism believer who with college success in that field to starting to look at supernatural ideas because of the rituals that I had started to partake in. Started to really research the foundation of Lucifer and the occult, and is also hand in hand with esotericism and theosophy. It all goes back to Babylon mystery religions. And I saw, you know, demons, Baal, other ones that I became familiar with was Azazel, you know, the concept of Leviathan, Satan, all these things. And I'm not just talking this. I'm not just a pastor on a stage that's saying, you shouldn't do this. I mean, I have a pentagram in my hand. I cared so much that I endured that horrible pain and hours of stuff. I had tattoos lasered off to put a Baphomet here. I have the sigil of Lucifer here. I have Crowley here. My whole ribs are a giant black demon ripping out my heart and shoving a pope down into a demon's mouth, a hell mouth. I know what I'm to. My back is Medusa from the gates of hell, from Dante's Divine Comedy, from the Inferno. I know what I'm talking about because I'm coming from that place. I'm not coming from the Christian place telling you not to go to Satanism. I'm coming from Satanism telling you to go to Christ. You a lot of people delve into this stuff ignorantly. You have a lot of clothing companies, Blackcraft, and I'm not going to finish it, copyright, whatever. You have Blood something, you know, there's a lot of them. You may be familiar with what I'm talking about. Instagram pushes this stuff everywhere. You see a lot of, you know, young, innocent people wearing the giant sigil of Lucifer, the Leviathan cross, pentagrams, not even knowing what the heck they're doing, what they're inviting into their lives. But I can tell you from doing magic rituals that the power of the word has an effect. That's why they have magic words. That's why Aleister Crowley wrote volumes and volumes and dedicated his life to it. That's why these societies have existed throughout time. That's why these esoteric societies based in Babylon mystery are in power today. This is the devil's realm. Period. God has ultimate power, but the earth is here because of fallen angels. Well, the fallen angels are on earth because they are fallen angels and they were cast here and they walk among us. They're smarter than us. They know how to fool us. They know how to teach us that they don't exist. I think that the saying is, and I always mess it up, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the world he doesn't exist. It's true. It's true. If you look at if you are familiar with the symbolism of the gestures of any of the all-seeing eye and any of the Masonic symbolism, it's all throughout every genre of music now. It's infiltrated pop and rap. It used to be kind of just a metal, but it's moved on out. It's in your actors are doing it. People are wearing the red bracelets of Kabbalah belief. A lot of Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher is a Freemason. He's got the hat. Shaq is a Freemason. There's so many people that are in this that this has permeated. It's powerful, but the symbolism has an effect, and the rituals have an effect, and that's really what I desired. I thought that this would bring me happiness and completion. I thought that being rampant with sexuality and drug abuse and alcohol abuse would bring me happiness. It doesn't. And looking back, I'm 39 years old now. I'm halfway through my journey. And I can tell you that I've wasted at least 27 years of my life. I'm telling you this out of love, not judgment. I'm telling you this because I want you to see the way that this is. Every drug that I took numbed me to reality. Every alcohol erased it. All the sex in the world doesn't fill the hole. It's like these things have weight to them, and you're trying to throw them in a hole. Throw them in this hole and fill it up. And the more that you throw in there, that weight just pushes it deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So eventually you're left with what I like to call a God-sized hole that only one thing can fill, and that's God. So after living this way, my wife and I met. She was deeply into the same way that I was. We spent 7 years off and on fighting, no matter how much we loved each other, no matter how much we wanted to be together. We couldn't seem to make it work. We ended up getting in a very bad way. And it culminated to the point where she was making money from dancing, sex work, and modeling, sex work. And I was making money and being a successful business owner in tattooing, which brings a lot of financial success that allows you to have all the drugs and alcohol that you want. We moved from from weed. We started doing pills. We started with Percocets and Vicodins. Before I knew it, I was taking Oxycontins. I was taking 240 milligrams at a dose at 160 pounds and falling asleep standing up. Literally, I should have been dead. There's only one reason why I'm still alive today, and I honestly believe it is to come from these places to talk to you, to try and get you to understand what this will lead you to. Yes, the weed led to acid. Yes, the weed led to the opiates and the painkillers, and then that led to the benzos. And then before we know it, we're high and on pills all day, every day, ending the nights with whiskey and scotch, blacking out till I pass out. Kim never really got into the alcohol and stuff. So eventually, after living in the shop for a long time, and having been off and on, the last time that we were off before I moved out of the shop, Kim and I had been apart for a few months, and she got a little puppy to, be her companion since I was in my absence. A little Lucifer, the pug. And I saw this little cute dog, and I said, "Oh, that's awesome." And I texted her and said, "Why don't you come over and bring that dog?" And she brought her over, and again, the shop is here, and the loft was up above it. It was inside it, but kind of not really necessarily in the shop. So she had her up there, but we couldn't have her to where she'd bark and be disturbing stuff. So we decided to go ahead and move out. We moved a couple streets away into a nice, it was an okay apartment, $700 a month. We got another pug, Bub, B as Bubba, and we continued our life. While we were there, her friend from work and her brother's girlfriend came over to start doing cam girl stuff. This is another aspect of the sex industry. There's stripping, nude modeling, stripping, however that usually goes. Cam girl. We'll get there. So they started doing this camming girl, and I'd come home from work. There'd be two girls naked in the bathtub, and I was cool with it. I was cool with the extra money. I was cool with the amenities that came from it. We were living happy. And then this girl comes and says, "Hey, I found this site, Established Men. Establishedmen.com. There's another one, seekingarrangements.com. We'll just refer them to them as the sites now. She said, "I found this site where you can make arrangements for a sugar daddy." A sugar daddy is someone that buys you stuff and gives you money for sex. It's prostitution. It's a nice way to say prostitution, just like escort is a nice way to say prostitution. You're a prostitute. So she meets this businessman that's in from Asia, that's here. He's married, got a wife and kids back at home, and she says, this gentleman wants to buy me an apartment so that he doesn't have to pay for the hotel rooms. He thinks it'd be cheaper in the long run just buy the apartment. He said, "Go pick out any apartment you want in the city." So of course, Kim and this girl go and look around at the best apartments. They look at the Jackson on High. It's one of the nicest apartments in Columbus, and at the Wonder Bread Lofts. She ends up picking out a $2,500 a month apartment, way beyond our means, in a place. And they went there because I always told Kim, if I could have an apartment in Columbus, I would live there. They're kind of like Batman lofts, very industrial, very nice and big. So this girl gets the loft, and she says, "I don't want to live alone. How about you and Brett move in?" This is the story I was given. "How about you and Brett move in so that he can be there as the male of the house for protection, and you can be there to keep me company?" And I thought, well, this is a good thing. We're moving on up. So we go over there, and that's when things really got exponentially fast. So we're there for maybe a week. Then I come home, and I've got a pair of green Allen Edmonds shoes that are $400 shoes sitting there on my bed when I get in. She said, "I had a really good night at work last night," Kim does. I said, "Oh, wow, thanks. This is nice." I'm like, oh, material objects, I like to dress nice. The next day I had a blazer, scotch and soda, probably a $400 blazer. The next day I had a tie from Allen Edmonds, an $80 tie. This kept going on and on and on to where I said, stripping has really taken off. What used to make you $200 a night seems to be making about $1,000. So, kind of thought about it, and I was like, I think this is pretty obvious. This girl's a prostitute. We're living with her. Kim's seeing all this money, if she wasn't involved in the first place. I think that my girlfriend's a prostitute. So I think about it, and I kind of feel out the girl because she's a little easier to pick at. Kim's very smart, knows how to hide, knows how to manipulate. Nothing that she's proud of now. We both come a long way. I'm more proud of her and her walk and her journey with Christ than I am in mine. I'm more happy to see her come to Christ than I am mine. But I kind of picked the girl long enough to get a good idea that Kim was indeed a prostitute. So I'll never forget it. I came down to breakfast one morning, and I was kind of quiet, and said, and we had been fighting too. We'd been fighting so bad that I actually punched a cinder block wall. There was a mirror on top of it. I punched it, the mirror didn't break, and I thought, I'll show you. Punched that mirror again, and didn't break. I said, I'm gonna get you. So I punched it again, and then I heard a crack. And I looked down, and my hand was, it was actually this one. There's a scar that runs here where I had the plates. And I heard it, and there went my livelihood for a brief time. Thank God I actually have my capacities back and I'm tattooing again. But because of the strife and the fighting that was going on with us, I kind of picked up speed. And, the obvious material goods, obvious, bigger amounts of drugs coming in the house. I set her down and said, Kim, are you turning tricks? She looked me right in the eyes and said, do you want to know the truth? I knew what the truth was right then, and I loved my wife my girlfriend at the time. I loved her very much, and I said, I knew that I had researched it a little bit at that point, so that it's going to be impossible, nearly impossible, to make her quit myself, because the money is so good. She's a beautiful girl, and she makes a lot of money. So I said, well, we're in an open relationship then. I'm going to do whatever I want. And I stormed upstairs to where I stayed for about 2 days, just laying in bed, just thinking about it. Kept researching, and time after time I saw that there's nothing that's going to, they said if they do it because of drugs, you might rehab the drugs. If they do it because they're forced, you may be able to save them from that, forced prostitution. But if they're doing it because of money, good luck. So I decided that I didn't want to lose my wife. And then devil started whispering in my ear, but you like all those material goods. But you can have other women come into the bed now. But you can really use this for your own selfish desires. So I said, let's embrace it. So for a year straight, we embraced that lifestyle. I would leave my house so that other men could come in. I ignored what I knew the truth was, or just justified it. I even chalked it up to feminism. Hey, you go girl, you embrace your sexuality. I'm not a controlling man. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Again, not an excuse, but society really gives you a way out of being righteous. So after a year and having big fights, at this time the fights started getting crazy. Cops were called a couple times, probably 3 or 4 times in the course of a year, to the point where the cops told me, you need to record these fights so that you can protect yourself. And because I gotten accused of laying my hands on her, and I didn't during those fights. I will admit that was part of the process. And there was a point where I did, and that was shameful and probably one of the biggest regrets that I have. Thank God Jesus forgiving. Yes, Jesus, and uses that example. We're still together, and it's something I would never ever do again. But after a year of fighting, she told me multiple times, you're not happy, and a lot of her ideas was she was definitely projecting onto me. I heard her scream that she doesn't love me anymore while she was streaming tears, and I knew in my heart that she was afraid that I did not love her. I knew she loved me. I knew that I loved her. I knew that's why we were still together, and God had a plan for us. So we fought so bad that she told me that I needed to move out multiple times. I moved back into the shop probably 3 times in the year. It was constant turmoil, but it was numbed by material goods, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars coming, sometimes multiple thousands a day, living in a $2,500 a month apartment, getting to like buying each other $1,000 appliances and suits and stuff, and each day we'd buy something, and this was just to try and give the illusion of happiness. I know that we could have been in a box and our love would make us happy. Now our love and our faith it'll carry us to the ends of the earth and the end of the days. But she told me to get out so many times. I moved my stuff out every day, or like every other month. I'd go out towards the end, and then eventually something had to give. So I gave up my shop that I had owned for 6 years, and instead of breaking up with her, or there was so much tension, I thought something's got to go. It must be the job. It must be the job, because I was failing as a business owner. I was so messed up on drugs. I was so caught in my own selfishness. I barely worked anymore. I was too busy worrying about crazy sex parties and getting the best scotch to drink a whole bottle of $200 scotch in one day, to smoking the best dabs, taking giant bong hits of dabs, which is like $10 a hit. We take, I don't even know how many a day. We went through probably $300,000, if not more, that one year, and don't have a thing to show for it. And that's how that happens. But after all that tension, something had to give, and I even lost my the first thing that I lost was, honestly, the very first thing I lost with all this was the time with my daughter. I can't stress that enough. You don't know what loss is until, if you lose a child, I think you will know, but when you lose time with a child, it's the next thing in line, the next worst thing to that. But I had lost my business and a career that I worked 12 and a half years for at that point. Gave up scholarships to go pursue, climbed my way from the bottom as not a very good artist in a rough shop to being in one of the best shops in Columbus. But at the point when I gave away my business, this is how clear my head was. I gave away the shop that ranked second best in Columbus for the last 4 years that I owned it. And we were always number 2, and Evolved Body Art was number 1. So I didn't have a plan when I did this, but I just gave the shop to one of the employees there that with trust that he would run it similarly to how I did it, and he didn't. And I can understand why, but it didn't jive with me, and I ended up leaving. And I had no job when I left. I thought no one's going to hire me because my reputation was well known. I was violent. I got in fights at the shop. I was known as a womanizer. I was known as a temperamental jerk. I was known as very judgmental and just crappy. So there I was without my job. Oh no, I'm sorry. I missed. No. The job went, and I was living with Kim, just sitting there, and we were still very well fed. Thousands of dollars a day from prostitution makes a comfortable pillow, kinda. Actually, it doesn't. But then the tension came to where I turned on my family, my immediate family, and I picked apart anything that they had done in my entire childhood and threw it all in their faces and told them that I didn't want to talk to them anymore. And 2.5 years later, I still don't talk to them. It's something that God is working with me on, and I'm convinced will pass. But there's adjustments and things I'm still doing in myself. But so then I lost my family. So then all I was left with was the prostitution, Kim, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and materialism. Still had all the stuff I wanted. I had blue shoes, and green shoes, and brown shoes, black shoes, and purple suits, and jungle pants, all this crazy stuff that really did nothing. And then I got a job at Evolved. By the grace of God, they gave me a chance to go and improve myself. And it's been a wonderful experience. I've been there for about 1.5 years. Shortly after I got my job at Evolved, Kim said, "You're very unhappy. You need to leave." I went to Evolved, and the owner, Nick, has properties that he rents out. And I got the first one that was available. It was a $500 property that is in a terrible neighborhood. It's in North Linden in Columbus on Manchester Avenue, and when I moved in, gunshots every night. My house even got robbed. I've got video of it getting robbed. The guy came in, stole my TV, and took off because the alarm started going off. I wasn't smart enough to get an alarm system when I got there, hence the video and hence his quick exit. But he did get my TV before he left. But I came back home, tried to make it work for about another 2 weeks, and Kim told me to leave again. So I left, but we still loved each other. And by the time that she told me to leave, to getting all my stuff packed and moving it over there, we decided to give it one more go. And I said, Kim, you can move in here. I will pay for everything. I just want you to get a normal job because this is tearing us apart. I was starting to see the patterns, starting to see the emptiness that all this stuff brought. I said, just come here, get a normal job, we'll make it work. We got there, we still had tensions from what we had been through. We still fought, and we had a blowout over money one night because a bill was due the next day, and I felt she didn't give me enough time. I was crappy about it. She said, well, I'm going to move out. And instead of, making up, I slept in the other room, called her bluff, and she moved out the next day. When she moved out, I had a little vaporizer pen that you put dab in. And first thing I would do in the morning, every morning, is reach over, grab that pen. That's how I started my day before I even got out of bed. Get high. First thing I did in the morning, last thing I did at night. That's why it was on the nightstand. I went to hit it, and it fell behind the headboard. So I reached behind, reaching for that, and I pulled out condoms. My wife and I didn't use condoms. We were told that she couldn't conceive. And so we're married at that point. We got married and all that chaos at the apartments. We did love each other very much and do love each other. We're perfect. We're soulmates. But we did get married, and so I reached down and found condoms in the new house where prostitution was supposed to end. And I knew that she had still been prostituting. So for the first time in all of this escapade, I decided to look into her emails. I hacked into her emails, and I saw things that I never wanted to see, read things I never wanted to read. It really destroyed her character in my mind. She was still lost. She still had not seen what I'd seen, and neither had I. But this was the first time when God was really speaking to us. He'd been speaking it to us. This is the first time I started to listen. So she was gone, and I decided to wash my hands of her. Just completely, I'm done. This was at the beginning of 2016, probably February, I think. So knowing what had cost me everything from the time with my daughter, who was now 17, not knowing her the way that I'd known her, missing those opportunities like teaching her to drive, teaching her to ride a bike. I'd seen her every weekend, and then moved to every other weekend as she wanted time, understandably, with her friends. It was weighing on my heart and my soul. And knowing that I had lost a girl that I truly loved more than that I loved. Any other relationship that I had was nothing. I mean, it was time filler. And true love was, I saw in her. Knowing that I lost her, knowing that I had no family. I had no family. I had no business, which at one time I was making, I think the figure was $350 an hour, $360 if you had my employee's commission and mine. I lost that. I lost my wife. I had lost all that time with my daughter. I wasn't speaking to my mom, my dad, my brother. I had left them all, and I had nothing. And I was living in a little tiny house in the ghetto. Gunshots, like I said, were commonplace. I was told by one of my police officer clients I'd known for years, he said on 4th of July and on New Year's Eve, don't go outside because falling bullets are dangerous. We don't even patrol. So there I was, and I said, enough is enough. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to get physically healthy. I'm going to get mentally healthy and spiritually healthy. So I worked out regularly. planted a garden for the first time in my life, and I started just reading audiobooks over and over. And I, again, was trying to bypass Christianity. I read Oceans of Theosophy. I read the Bhagavad Gita. I read The Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled. The New Age and the Vedic and the Hindu. I really thought it was, the art's beautiful from it. And some of the concepts are really aesthetically pleasing, but I kept finding that there wasn't truth in it. I tried a Native American sweat lodge. I did a lot of different things to try and fill myself spiritually, but nothing spoke to me. So in that path, I came across the apologists, the Christian apologists, and these are very brilliant people that apply science and history, philosophy, critical thinking to the idea of Christianity to support it. And the way I found it was David Berlinski versus Richard Dawkins, atheism versus theology. So started getting trapped, started getting painted into a corner. And I knew that these messages were sent to me specifically. Not that they were made for me specifically, but I had encountered them in part of a very giant plan that I can't even comprehend. So I found the apologists, and I got uncomfortable with the truths that I was seeing. Finding ideas that are outside of your worldview of decades that are truthful mean admitting that you have been wrong. That's not something that I have a propensity to do, and I don't think many people do. Finding evidence of the teachings in the Bible that are correlated in history and in science, with Hugh Ross and Ravi Zacharias and all these apologists telling me these things that I'm like, oh yeah, I recognize that from school. I learned that in college. I have that. Nebuchadnezzar is in my art books. Started seeing a factual basis for the doctrine of the Bible. And I still didn't want it. I still did not want to be a Christian. So once my mind was wrapped around it, and even in like Stephen Hawking's The Brief History of Time, half of that is a theological discussion on, does God create rules and then just let them go? Does he manipulate them as they go? There's the movie Particle Theory, or Particle Fever, which actually I saw after we came to Christ. But even in those many scientific doctrines, they can't eliminate a creator or divine intervention or intelligent design. They won't call it God for nothing. But that's what it is. So I kept getting backed in a corner to where each belief that I wanted was gone, but the truth kept prevailing and prevailing. It got undeniable in my mind. And I thought, oh no. Boy, have I messed up. And I started looking at the moral teachings of the Bible, and I considered the way that I had tested them all. And the repercussions. And it floored me. Then, once my head was wrapped around it, my heart started being called on. And as I tried to run from it, as I saw it being revealed, I kept getting slapped in the face with the truth. And there was a time, it was December 30th, and my wife had been gone, and I was sitting there, still angry about not having all the things I'd worked for and wanted, and knowing in my heart that I had been wrong, that even though I hadn't accepted it fully yet, and was still caught up in my flesh to be prideful and not admit that I was wrong. There was one day I turned on the TV and there was Jesus. Documentary about Jesus, History Channel, flip over to Fox News, and there's Jesus. Discussion about Jesus. Flip over to MSNBC. Jesus. Grab the magazine, open it up. There's Jesus. Grab I forget which book it was. And again, it was Jesus. And I was a huge fan of pro wrestling, and a lot of my art, some of my art has, that connotation. And I leave all my social media, all the old paths, so that you can go back and explore it and see that I'm telling the truth about these things. So I saw a post from Dustin Kinzer, one of my friends on Facebook, complete stranger. And it was the Heartbreak Kid, who happened to be my wife's biggest crush when she was a kid. And I thought, well, here's a womanizer party animal that, haha, gotcha, Jesus. Not going to get me here. So I clicked on it and wanted to see. He's got a new movie. Awesome. What's this about? Is his wrestling career? And it was his testimony. And I knew that I was being talked to very personally, not just in that moment, but my whole life. And I realized all the signs that I ignored, and the times that I had not only denied Christ, but I specifically made fun of him and mocked him, and the blasphemy and the cost of my family and my business from living outside of God's intention. And I got on my knees and said, I'm sorry. And I prayed for the first time in a long time to Christ, and said, I'm sorry. And I realized what I had done, that I was blessed with the mind to really excel in academics, the hands to become a very successful tattoo artist, the business savvy to become a business owner. I was blessed with my wife, my daughter, my family, and I asked Christ into my life. And I knew at that very moment that I was forgiven. Right then. I didn't have to run anymore, that I didn't have to search for happiness in the wrong places, that I didn't have to try to prove myself with how many women I could go through, or how many fights I could win, or how many drugs I could do and still be standing. I knew that I didn't have to get high all day. I knew that I didn't have to drink to numb any conscience that I might be talking to me. I knew that I didn't have to lose any more of my family. I knew that I didn't have to lose my business. I knew that at that moment, if I was honest with him and said I was sorry, that I was instantly forgiven right then for free. Not just one of my sins, but all of them. All of them. He knew everything that I had done. He knew. And not only did he not leave me, he had chased me. He had chased me so hard with these lessons. It may not be comfortable at times. You may think, well, God has punished me. And it's not. He's trying to show you. He loves you, and he wants you to make the decision. That's why we have free will, so that we can express love. If we didn't have choices to do the wrong thing or the right thing, or mess up, or be the righteous person, we would be dictated, and that's not love. And above everything that God wants for us, whether it's family, financial prosperity, health, he wants love. because he loves us. He loves every one of us. That's why he became Christ, to come into our dimension. We live in space and time. God does not. He had to come here to show us how much he loved us. Jesus was sent to teach us and to love us and give the ultimate sacrifice of his life, and he did, so that we could stop one day in one moment. It only takes right now, and I beg you right now to stop and say you're sorry. Stop everything that you're doing. It can all end right now. You don't have to chase for love in other women's arms if you're married, or men's arms if you're a woman. You don't have to do drugs. None of that. So I got about a half hour to do this and realize how big this all was, how supernatural yet personal this was. And it was like lightning bolt. Thought hit my mind. Call your wife. And I was thinking, what? No way. Our lives together were, we led each other. We sprinted towards the devil. Like, are you kidding? And I heard it again, call your wife. And I thought about it, and I knew, because it wasn't in my comfort zone and not something that I had actively thought or pursued, that it's what God wanted me to do. So I called my wife. She came over that very afternoon, and she was raised atheist. Father was atheist. Grandfather was atheist. And I was embarrassed still to tell her. So I didn't. I didn't tell her why I called her. My heart was full of Jesus. And we sat there. We watched a few things on TV. And I think that I couldn't watch anything that was foul. I just can't do that anymore. I don't want to hear about fornication or drug abuse or just selfish nature that our society just pushes on TV. She looks at me. She goes, "You love Jesus, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I have to tell you about a dream." She said while she was learning the Wonder Bread lost before she was taken out that prosperity into a narrow place to examine herself, the same as I was on Manchester. She said, "I was sleeping and a man came to me and woke me up in my dream. And he said, 'Follow me.' And I thought, this is weird. I don't follow strangers." So she followed him, and when she left our apartment, they exited. The outside was actually a big field. She said it was so bright it hurt her eyes. It was just glowing, golden rod and all this, just everything was golden out there. Really bright. The man led her, kept following her into the center of the field, and there was another man there. She said the man was, she realized that he was the source of the light. And she couldn't see his face because of the radiating light from the perimeter of his body. His face was a silhouette. He started speaking in a language she didn't understand. She was confused. And she looked to the man that had led her out there, and he said, "This is Yahweh." And then led her back to the house. And she said she woke up. She said she knew she had been clothed when she went to sleep, but woke up naked, downstairs, not in the bed. So she ran upstairs to the bed and fell back asleep. When she woke up in reality, she remembered the dream. She Googled. She had no clue what a Yahweh was, or who a Yahweh was, or when a Yahweh was. It's all those things. But she saw it was the name of God, and that she had been praying ever since. And I knew right then that our lives were going to be different. And we said, "Well, you know what this means?" And she knew what it meant. I knew what it meant. So we decided to go to a church. And one of my friends, in my posts on social network, I was very vocal. Usually a lot of angry posts, blasphemous posts. all kinds of satanic music posts, satanic art posts, all this. My Christian friends never left me. They never unfriended me. They were there the whole time. They didn't judge me. They won't judge you. I promise. That's all a lie. That's the enemy talking in your ear, telling you that they'll judge you. Don't go there. Don't go there. He doesn't want you to find happiness. But a friend of mine, Eric Venon, said, hey man, he wrote me a comment on one of my last posts before finding Christ. And I knew at that point, I kind of knew in my heart where I was being pulled, even though I was still in denial. He said, when you're ready, I'm here. And I wrote him, I said, I'm not ready. I said, but I'll let you know when I am. And after meeting with Kim, I wrote him and said, hey man, I'm ready. And he said, come to my church. You'll love it. You know, he and I had the same kind of approach to a lot of things. I thought if it's good for him, you know, it'd probably be good for me. And we went to Faith Life Church. Sorry, it's harder than I thought it would be. And we walked in, we were smiled at. We were treated more like family than I had been in the 14 years as a tattoo artist and her time with the suicide girls. Never felt the warmth as we did when we walked in. And Pastor Gary started his sermon, and within 5 minutes I turned to Kim. I said, I think we're home. And we were. Since that day, we haven't missed a single Saturday. We've gotten involved. We've went through the growth track, which is something we can do if you want to, contribute to the church. She's gotten involved in the daycare with the 4-year-olds. I'm going to be involved with the 13 to 18-year-old ministry. And if these people look at me with the things that are on my face and my hands, and there's this word out of chaos and Masonic stuff and pentagrams and all this, and they trust me and they can look into my heart, look into my soul, and see in my eyes that I love Christ. They'll see it in you, and you won't be judged. And this isn't just here, this is the Christian family. When people truly understand Christ and want to live like him and treat others like him, you won't be judged, you won't be condemned. You'll be prayed for, you'll be welcomed, you'll be loved. And that's truly our experience. And since coming to Christ, our relationship with each other has been phenomenal. We don't fight like we used to. I quit drugs. I haven't smoked a single puff of weed or dab or whatever, bong ripper or whatever you want to call it. I haven't done it since January when we came to Christ. The 30th is when I hit my knees, and she was there on the 31st. Say the 30th and then the 31st, and then we were done. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do pills. And I don't want to. There was no withdrawal. There was just a hole that was left that Christ came right in. God came right in. And I'm a better man for it. I'm a more pleasant man for it. Kim's a better woman for it. She's more pleasant. We're giving, we're loving. I don't road rage anymore. I consider everything in my life under the light of God and Christ and their intentions and their wants and wills for us. I've taken the heart of the Father. I don't scorn my enemies. I don't wish them misfortune. I pray for them. I pray for you. Every night I pray for the lost, because I was lost. That's who I relate to you. I can't tell you how good this is, and it's free. It's free and it's immediate. So, from a real person, I'm not a pastor, yet. Just someone in the body of Christ, I'm begging you, do your research. See if there is historical evidence for Christ and the resurrection. See who really wrote the Bible, over how long. Compare it to other religions. Use a scrutinizing eye on Christianity. Question it. It tells you to question it. It's in the Bible. Question everything. Keep the good. When you hear that there's revisions, look into how many revisions there are, how similar those revisions are. If it's lost anything in connection, look at it compared to the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are a good measure of literary criticism. Understand what literary criticism is. Look at the people in a church. Look at their families. See if they're hitting happy hour to find happiness. See if they're not happy from the time they get up to the time they go to bed, whether they're having a good day or a bad day by the earth's standards. Look at the evidence for yourself. Don't accept someone's opinion. Don't accept what the news tells you. Don't accept what your favorite musician tells you. Don't worry about what other people will think of you. When you find Christ and you bring him into your life, you'll be happy to be criticized. You'll be happy to stand apart. You'll be happy to be the light of the world. It is the truth. And you only get one chance to find it. And you've lost every second that you're not walking with Christ. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you listen to my story. I probably go back and edit this and put some pictures of proof of where I'm coming from. Not that I'm proud of it, but for some reason I documented almost everything that I'm talking about. Got pictures of big bags of weed and pills and every other vice and thing. It was nasty. I don't know why I would do that, except for God wants me to use my mistakes as a tool to reach out. That's why he let me go so far, is to be able to reach out and help you understand, to look at it for yourself. I'm not telling you to listen to me. I'm telling you, don't listen to anyone. Listen to you. You deserve to take the time to look at it. Check into the apologists. Critique them. Find out who Ravi Zacharias is. If you have a question, put it in YouTube and then put his name. And you'll see he explains things so profoundly that he's not the only one. And he's not telling his truth, he's telling the truth. And it's open to your scrutiny. Look at it with the scientific mind. Question it. I promise that you'll end up where I am. If you spend the time, I spent decades exploring other religions, living in the world's view of happiness. And I can tell you that you're robbing yourself. You're robbing yourself. Get married, have kids, find the joy in, the day-to-day struggles with your significant other. Find the extreme euphoria in watching your kid succeed. Not one drug or alcohol high compared to the night I watched my daughter in her marching band playing the national anthem. I can't tell you. I can't express how good that feels. Give it all up. Your shackles are no more. You don't have to live this way. You can find contentment with exactly where God has placed you when he has placed you. Father, I just pray that everyone watching this video takes it upon their heart and their mind to question what they're being told and to make their own decisions, even question what I'm telling them. give it objective scrutiny, to find truth, because there is only one truth. I pray that they want to see the truth, because I know the truth is there. It's a matter of the desire to see it. I pray that they remove the scales from their eyes that have been put there by secular life, by worldly desires, by fleshly passions, and find you as even I found you, as you found me. Thank you, Lord, for this platform to reach out and see, or to touch others so that maybe they can see your love, your perfect plan, your supernatural power of omniscience and omnipotence and omnibenevolence. You really are a good, good God. And we thank you for the example that you sent down as yourself, as your only Son, Jesus Christ, to make such a sacrifice so that we have a measure of your powers and abilities and your pure nature and your heart of forgiveness, so that we can ask for forgiveness this day, this very day, to wash all of our sins off and stand before you as a pure child of God. I pray, Father, that all of the lost come to you, not just some, but every last lost soul, so that they can experience life as you designed it, as you intended in your glory, singing your praise and finding true happiness, true completion. I just love you so much, Father, and I thank you for everything. In Jesus' name, amen.
If you enjoyed this video or these types of testimonies, please remember to hashtag Jesus and share it all across your social media. And not just the content of this channel, there are millions of testimonies out there, hundreds of millions. And even beyond testimonies, there's great gospel music and praise and worship. There's crazy healings and supernatural encounters and out-of-body experiences and everything you can imagine. God is still at work in the world, raising his children and redeeming us. So even though the mainstream has this organized campaign of prejudice against Christians and has largely demonized us, saying, oh, we must be haters, or we must be uneducated, or, all of that type of thing, hopefully you can see from these testimonies that we are just regular people from all walks of life who found our way out of that mainstream lie and back to the truth. And we're telling you how amazing it is and how real it is. So please help us further the cause and hashtag Jesus across all of your social platforms, and let's get Jesus trending again. He's worth it. And if we don't do it, nobody is going to do it. They've banned the Bible. They've banned the Ten Commandments. They've banned prayer. They won't even let the valedictorians thank God at graduation anymore. It's insane. It seems like they teach people that, oh, you can't bully anybody. You have to be tolerant of every people group except Christians. You're allowed to bully Christians. The mainstream lie actually tries to make it seem cool and trendy to be intolerant and prejudiced toward Christians, to have hate and fear toward Christians. But hopefully you can see we're just regular people, nothing to fear here. And we love you and God loves you. And we just want to tell you that. Because in the book of Revelation, when it talks about the end times and the Great Awakening, it literally says that we overcame the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony. So here we are. We won't be silenced, and we are not ashamed. These are our testimonies. As with every testimony in the hashtag Jesus movement, you can find the link below to these original channels. All of these amazing brothers and sisters have so much more to share, and you can find that at their channels and their websites, which will be linked below in the description box. And if you don't have your own YouTube channel or social media presence and you want to submit your testimony, you can either send that in writing and I will read your testimony and show it on the screen, or you can tape it yourself and send it in an attachment to this site's email address at JesusHashtag@yahoo.com. And also, if I have shared your testimony on this site and you've decided that you want to take it down, I'll totally respect that. You can also contact me at JesusHashtag@yahoo.com, and I'll be happy to remove it from the site. All of these testimonies are people who have come forward and wanted to make this information public, and they have publicly posted these testimonies in an effort to add their voice to the ocean of voices that is the body of Christ. But like I said, if anyone doesn't want to add their voice to this site and this effort, I will absolutely respect that. Just contact me and I will remove your voice from this site. But special thanks to all of you who were bold enough and courageous enough to stand up and give your testimony publicly. We love you deeply. May God bless you and yours.